that was so scary. And I love the special effects. That
Thank you.
scared the hell out of me. Oh my gosh. Oh my God. At least I'm glad you didn't give Steve a tip.
Yeah, it was
But
weird.
not only was he phantom and he's dead, then you tipped him on top of it. That really would. Except part of you along the way, I wanted this woman to pull up. I'm large Marge. Can I give you a lift? Ah! I just wanted to remind everyone to please stay muted. You are only allowed to unmute yourself if somebody's story gets really scary, and you have to unmute and go, nah! And then immediately mute yourself again. All right, thank you. I'm so happy to see this man come up to our virtual stage. He is one of our very favorites. He can weave a tale like nobody's business. Julio has been doing this forever, and you see the true artistry in his work all the time. So he is here tonight. I am eager to be thrilled and chilled by his story. So please welcome Julio, the giant claw Martinez.
Julio.
Thank you. So, my wife and I were encouraged to adopt a child by our then 15-year-old daughter, Corey. Having an 11-year-old younger brother wasn't good enough for her. I have always wanted a sister, she proclaimed. So while imbibing our usual end-of-the-day glasses of wine, my wife Irene and I decided to consult with the LA Department of Children's Services, LA County Department of Children's Services. Zipping forward 3 years, we completed all the courses you need to take to be first licensed as a foster parent, a necessity before being qualified to adopt. We had attended 6 adoption fairs and had preliminary interviews with any number of county and state officials. Thoroughly fatigued by the process, we then listened to our now 18-year-old daughter, who was a senior at the LA County High School for the Arts, who proclaimed she wanted to be a chef and planned to enroll at the Cordon Bleu School in Pasadena. And she wanted to move out of our house into an apartment in Pasadena with a roommate. She was no longer interested in having a sister. Irene and I discussed this in depth at our usual tete-a-tete infused wine session and decided not to let the valuable training we had received go to waste. We told our social worker we were now interested in adopting a young boy. When consulted, our now 14-year-old son Cullen shrugged and said, why not? That is how 7-year-old Jesus Peña joined our household. He was born in Sunland. His parents were from El Salvador. Jesus had been in foster care since he was 2. He was not very talkative. He generally accepted whatever he told him or asked him with a short affirmative nod. If he disagreed with anything, he generally just looked down with a contemplative, slightly sad expression. That was my signal to offer variations on the theme until he lifted his head and nodded affirmatively. At best, we spent an explorative year getting to know and understand one another. One thing was for sure, he loved the 2 cats in our house, and he was basically amused by Irene and me. He never called us mom and dad. We were Irene and Julio. We moved into the 2nd year of our relationship. We received a date from our social worker when we could confirm his adoption in children's court. When we told him this, he smiled and told us he was an expert at children's court. He had been there at least a dozen times over the years since he was in foster care. That weekend, Irene decided she needs some things and wanted to go to the Target store in North Hollywood. So the family went to shop. Cullen was performing in a matinee of To Kill a Mockingbird at Interact Theater. So it was just the 3 of us wandering the busy aisles of the store. Now, Jesus was absolutely enthralled with Legos. and showed the most enthusiasm in his life when we took him to Legoland. When he saw the floor-to-ceiling display of this item at the toy department, he didn't ask. He just tore off and plopped himself in front of the maze of multicolored boxes. I gazed at him from the end of the aisle as he immediately, with utmost concentration, just started perusing the different options. Irene, who had watched this before, smiled and said, this can take a while. You watch him. I'm going to take a quick look to see if they have pants in my size. Irene was 4'11", hard to fit. I looked at Jesus. He was still deeply engrossed. I called out to Jesus, "How's it going?" He didn't even look up. Just then I saw a display sign go up in the electronics department. It advertised the impending sale of Apple computer products. I saw a Target employee and asked him what Apple products would they be selling. Their new iPhone in their new line of portables. I think they call it the MacBook. I found this phenomenally interesting. I had never heard of a MacBook. I took out my always ready little notebook and pen and wrote the name MacBook down. Then I gazed over at the Lego section. Jose was nowhere to be seen. He was nowhere to be seen. I didn't panic. My mind went into its natural, neutral state. I quickly walked the aisle and then crossed around it and came back to where I had been standing. He wasn't anywhere I could see. Just then Irene came back smiling. As usual, there was nothing my size, she shrugged. Where's Jesus? I looked at her and uttered, I don't know. We stared blankly at each other for a moment. Then Irene started calling out, Jesus, Jesus, while she moved quickly up and down the aisles of the toy department. I did the same thing, moving in the opposite direction. We both reached the opposite aisles of the store, constantly calling his name, but there was no response. There was no Jesus. We attracted a customer service representative who put out a store-wide search order. We were questioned. No, he doesn't look like us, either of us. He's darker. We're adopting him. The raised eyebrows I saw from the workers made me furious. Irene stared at me with a look of terror. Where is Jesus? There was one Target worker asked us, was he in the toy department? I saw a guy hanging out there who looked kind of suspicious. He seemed to be just standing around. Then Irene looked at me with a countenance of utter recrimination. Find him! You find him! At that moment, the store clerk pointed at the front door of Target. Is that him? Irene looked and dashed to the front door. Jesus! She grabbed him and held him. I turned to the clerk. That's him. Thank you. I slowly walked to the front door. I wanted Irene to have time with Jesus. I was also hoping she would forgive me for my inattentiveness. When I reached her, Jesus was talking calmly. I met a man who was a salesman for Legos. He said he would give me one of their samples. They were in his car. I went with him to the front door. He wanted to take me to the car, but I said no. He would go to the car and said he would come back, but he didn't. As Jesus talked, I felt my life about to crash. I realized Jesus was as much a part of me as Cullen and Corey, and how close had I come to facing an unspeakable horror. When we took him home, Irene didn't speak to me. When we got there, Jesus said, Irene, I'm going to play in my room. Irene looked at me blankly. Then she smiled. I saw it in your face. You loved him too. 3 months later, we officially adopted Jesus Carmichael Martinez. To this day, he still calls us Irene and Julio. Okay.
Julio Martinez, that was lovely. Thank you, Julio. I miss you. I love you, Julio. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that's wonderful. And someday he'll have kids of his own for him to be terrified by. The circle continues. Thank you. Thank you, Julio. I'm bringing up a favorite of ours. Everyone here is a favorite, but this man is a special favorite. I adore Ty in every way. I love our conversations together. I love how our minds run on the same circuit. Bizarre trains, strange tracks, but it is nice to find a kindred spirit. He also does storytelling all over. This is his milieu. This is what he loves, and it shines so brightly from him. That's the kind of storyteller he is. He is our storytelling treasure. So please welcome, hi, Invaders from Mars. Thanks.
Thank you, Beverly. Wow. Yeah. Okay, so, as far as I'm concerned, this never happened. And if you ask me in public, I will deny this. Okay, so I'm like 18. A lot of my stuff happens around that time. It's a bunch of crazy stuff. I'm at a party I shouldn't be at. I was told not to go because apparently there's a lot of violence in Compton at this time. And I wanted to go to this party because I just decided I needed to do something outside my comfort zone. So me and my friend, we were living in Watts at the time. We drive down Central Avenue all the way to Compton, make a left at Alondra, and end up at this house party. Now, we're there at 8:30, which is early. But see, I believe in going to these house parties early enough so I can get some food, get my dance on before all the hoodlums show up and it gets a little rough. So, and I'm not the most aggressive guy, so I need to be there early if I'm going to be seen and connect with anybody, women that is, before, like I say, all this competition gets there. Plus, I need to be home by 11 because I'm not supposed to be there. I must tell you at this point, I did have a little bit of a flair. I had a leather pair of pants on, black leather pants, nice red shirt, and had these little black diamonds on it. Not real like shiny diamonds, but the pattern. And I was wearing these black two-tone Stacey Adams shoes. They were brand new. They were not very comfortable, but I looked good. So I'm at the party, doing my thing. There's cool music playing. They're playing Isley Brothers, Teddy Pendergrass, Earth, Wind and Fire, Parliament, it's bumping. And I'd already had like almost 3 glasses of punch because it's not that many people there, so I keep eating. It's free. So, so I get my dance on a little bit. And finally, I think around close to 9:30 or so, she walks in. Now, I had never walked up and talked to this particular young lady, but she went to my high school and she's pretty popular. And I've noticed her, but I wasn't the guy to walk over and introduce myself. But let's just say I kind of was watching. Her friend was talking to her. And I'm telling my friend, hey, there's so-and-so. What is her name? You don't know her name either. Okay, fine, whatever. So, we're young and stupid. We're talking to each other, getting all excited. And as soon as her friend walks away, I said, fine. Though I'd already had 4 punches, I decided to go over and get 1 more because she's standing right next to the punch bowl. I go over and get my punch and I just stand next to her. I don't say nothing because I'm that guy. I can't talk to women. And at that time, don't get me wrong. And so I'm standing there and the music's bumping and she's kind of swaying. I'm like, oh yeah, hi, you like this? She says, yeah. And then she says to me, you're Ty, right? I'm like, what? You know me? Well, you're Ty, you're from Houston. Like, yeah. I'm like, wow, okay. All right. Still, that's that pregnant like moment where there's nothing being really said, but enough is being said for me to stay there and think she might want to talk to me. But I'm as nervous as hell, so I'm not really doing enough really confident kind of thing. So I'm still standing there by. So then Parliament's flashlight jumps on. And she said, oh, this is my jam. You want to dance? I'm like, hell yeah. We get out and we doing our thing and dancing and dancing. Next thing you know, Ohio players come on and they start jamming Love Roller Coaster. I'm rocking that, man. We're having a good time. About 3 or 4 dances go on. We're doing this fast dance, right? And then Earth, Wind and Fire Reasons comes on. Now, if anybody know that song, that's the song you want to dance to if you want to get close to somebody. And I'm figuring, you know, we already danced 4 or 5 dances. This ought to be a cinch, right? She's standing right there. So I turn and go, hey, so you want, and right about that time, this big old muscle-bound dude turns out to be the running back for the Compton High football team. Cruises right in between us with 2 of his linemen in tow. And you know, I'm a little dude, man. I'm probably 130 pounds at the time and big old like 18-inch afro, but I ain't got no thumb. So I'm like, hey, he just moves right in and starts dancing with her, man. And I'm looking at him like, ain't this well, okay, fine. So then I walk over to the punch table. Now, I'm thinking maybe I should just go back in because I had an in, but I didn't feel that confident about it. So I tell my friend, hey, man, let's go. He don't stop dancing with the girl he dancing with. He almost ignores me. And now I'm kind of, you know, I'm in a hard place. Like I drove there with him. I can't go home. It's a long ass walk home. So I'm still looking at the dude dancing with the girl. And they turn around to a point where he can look at me over her shoulder. And he mouths the word, unbeknownst to me, while we were dancing, he was watching. And apparently, this is his girl. I didn't know that, but apparently it is. So he's telling me he's gonna kick my ass. Well, I don't know much about fighting, but I know 2 things. It takes 2 people. I also know that in order to get your ass kicked, you have to be available. So I decided to make myself unavailable. So I slip out through the kitchen, down the back door, out to the street, and I stand by my boy's car. And I'm waiting like 10 minutes, and it's cold, it's October. Oh, I should have told you, it was a Halloween kind of party, but nobody was wearing any kind of costumes, but it was cold. And I'm standing out there, and I said, fine, forget this. I'm gonna walk home. So I start walking. Alondra runs east and west. It intersects Central down in Compton. It also goes past the airport. Now, at this time, I had heard a lot of violence and stuff going on with drive-bys and things like that. So I was careful to walk on the side facing the airport because the houses, people would come out of those too frequently, and that's where all the problems were. So I was walking on the other side. But unfortunately, it was dark, not a lot of street lights, and it was cold, so it was creepy as hell. But I'm walking with my eyes, and I'm alert, and I'm also watching cars as they come up from behind me because I didn't want it to be the football player and his boys in his car. So I'm watching. And then I get about, I don't know, 2 blocks from Central when all of a sudden all that punch I was drinking decided to kick in and decided it did not want to be in my bladder anymore. And I'm like, man, you know, it's dark, creepy, scary, and I'm really out of my element because I'm not even in my house. So I'm walking a little faster trying to get into maybe a restaurant or a gas station. But man, I couldn't make it. So there was these hedges right on alongside of the fence where the airport was. But they were high, so high enough that even a little bit of ambient light that was out there made this location really, really creepy dark. But I really had to take care of it. So I creep over behind him and I'm midstream, and then I hear, hey man, you peeing on my, and that's all I heard. Because by the time he finished that sentence, I had already made the block at Central and I was headed north on Central Avenue. I'm running so fast. I mean, I must have been like a cartoon. You know how your arms move so fast, you ain't know what's going on. Adrenaline had kicked into overdrive. My legs were moving so quick, my leather pants pretty much was burning off of me because I was moving, Jack. I didn't stop till I got close to Centennial High. If anybody know how far that is, you might want to let me know, because that was just when I figured I should stop running. There was a bus stop there, so I sat there on the bus stop thinking about what just happened. I'm saying, what the, oh, it's stupid. I'm waiting, and then the bus finally comes. I'm ready to get on the bus. Then I hear this raggedy car come up the street. It turns out it was my friend. Now his car is very noticeable. He's raggedy, he's got one light out in the front. No heater. It's the Delta 88. I don't know if you guys know that car, but 1968 Delta 88. Probably the raggedest car ever made, and loud. So I see him come up, and I'm thinking, do I get in the car with this fool, or did I just get on the RTD? I figured I'd get on that RTD because it's warmer, comfortable, and they do all the driving. I don't have to worry about anything. So I do that. I get on the bus. And I finally, get home, go up the stairs at the back of the apartment, get inside, and you couldn't have timed this better. As soon as I got in and closed the door, the front door to our apartment opened up, and my mom was walking in. So, I stripped off those leather pants, what was left of them, and took those things out, put on my little PJs, and I pretended to be asleep. And I thought about that, though. I thought about that night, and I was like, I'm one of those guys, and I didn't know this about me. I come to learn it now, but I'm one of those guys that I'm not happy unless my hair is on fire. I need some threat in my life for me to feel alive, because I had no business going to that party. But I also found out something else. Had I not gone and had that dance with, I'm not going to name her name, it wouldn't have allowed me to have the follow-up where we ended up dating for 1.5 years.
Ty fans, ladies and gentlemen. Ty fans with the leather pants.
Yeah. Yikes.
Yikes.
And
I love that.
Some stiff, hard-toured Stacey Adams. And by the time I got there, those shoes had less leather and they were all scarred up. They were some ugly-looking shoes after that.
Thank you so much. A round of applause, please, everybody, for Mr. Ty. And remember now, Ty's given us 2 incredible pieces of information. Number 1, get to a party early for the punch and for the free food. Right. Get there pre-hoodlum time.
Absolutely.
Make sure you that. And the second thing was, in order to get your ass kicked, you have to make yourself available. Exactly. It won't happen. You gotta step up, people. You gotta step up. You gotta take some initiative to get your ass kicked.
That's you too.
That's what I'm saying. All right.
Thanks, Beverly.
Thank you so much. Mr. Farron. Oh, yay. Mr. Farron is here. As you well know, Mr. Farron is one of the producers of the Story Salon, the longest running storytelling show in Southern California, perhaps the world. And he is, he's my right-hand man. Thank God for Dan Farron in every way. I say this to him, he is one of the most prolific writers I know. Dan is always writing. He encourages me to write. I think I'm amazed by how quickly his mind works. He is very special in my heart, and I think he is a bountiful talent. So please welcome him tonight. Dan, War the Colossal Beast, Farron.
What? No zombie reference?
No.
That's okay though. That's fine. This goes back about 8 years or so. I just recently, believe it or not, celebrated my 8th anniversary as a security guard. And back in the very beginning, my very first post, I was a security guard for a few weeks at the UPS office in Van Nuys. And what I did was I worked Mondays and Tuesdays from 3 p.m. until 11 p.m. And at 11 o'clock, I then would walk back to the bus stop at Sherman Way and go home. It was a several block walk. It took about 20 minutes to do it. And it was through a rather seedy part of Van Nuys that they call Van Nuys. I walked past all this stuff on a regular basis. I'd walk around the fly around, okay? And then I would, I'm sorry, there's a dog outside. It scared Baxter for a second. Our cat, he just fled from my lap. But I was right by the flyaway, and I would walk around the flyaway through this industrial park, past all these auto repair shops and this reptile shop that sold snakes and had a giant dinosaur on the roof. And I would walk past this restaurant that had 2 very unfriendly security guards there who actually had guns. And I used to wonder, what is there about this restaurant that they need 2, not 1, but 2 security guards that have guns? I'm sure that's an interesting story for another evening. Then I would walk past a gentleman's club, a grocery store, and a strip club. Now, you may ask yourself, what's the difference between a gentleman's club and a strip club? A gentleman's club has valet parking, It has very high prices, and it has porn stars dancing. A strip club is where you pay for a cold cut buffet, a beer, and the opportunity to see your neighbor dance very badly trying to cover the rent. So it's Halloween. And I've been hearing all day long that ever since the sun went down, that how crazy it is out there. Oh, if you can stay in, stay in. Don't go out there. But I have no choice. I have to get home. So I take a deep breath and I start to walk. And everything's fine. I just usually put my earphones in and keep my head down and just keep on walking. And I'm across the street from the strip joint. And all of a sudden, I see this tiny, wild, crazy haired woman standing in the parking lot of the strip club. And she sees me, and we lock eyes for a second. And then, like a mad woman, she races across the street, dodging cars, and stops right in front of me and smiles and says, "Trick or treat, you got $1?" And I look at her and I explain to her that as working as a security guard, I never carry cash with me, which is true. And all I really have is a bus pass. And she looks at me and she says, "Well, that'll work." At this point, I did something very horrible that I do feel very ashamed of. I noticed that there was a man coming out of the restaurant and he was putting money back in his wallet. And I pointed out to her and said, "Oh, look, this guy's coming out of the restaurant. And I bet he has $1." And she descended upon this guy like like she was a zombie on this guy. And I quickly kept walking towards Sherman Way, having sacrificed somebody who probably was a very nice man. So I get up to Sherman Way. It's 11:30. I'm waiting for the bus, and this guy comes around the corner, and he's a guy from my work, and he says to me, "Hey, I hear the bus is going to be an hour late. Would you like a ride? My brother's here, and he'll give you a ride." And I said, "Well, sure. That's awfully nice of you." And I start to get in the car, and I suddenly said to myself, "Do I actually know this guy?" I mean, all the guys where I work wear baseball caps and have mustaches and wear flannel. He looks like a guy that I work with, but I'm not really sure. And am I about to do something really, really stupid, like get into the car with a complete stranger, two complete strangers? But by now, I was already in the car. I had committed to it, and we started to drive. And he said to me, "Where do you live?" And I said, "Oh, I live in Canoga Park." And he goes, "Oh, that's funny. We just happen to be going that way." And I started to get this sinking feeling, this really, really sinking feeling. And I told him, I said, "Well, that's great. I appreciate the ride and everything." And I started like Columbo asking him questions, like talking to him about, "Well, what do you think?" Or trying to find some little tidbit, some little clue that tells me, yes, I do work with this guy. No, I'm not incredibly stupid and done something at like age 50 that my parents told me not to do as a child, and that is not to get in a car with strangers. We're not talking about Uber drivers here. That's a different thing altogether later on. This is pre-Uber drivers. So we're just riding along, and we stop at a stoplight, and I look to the right, and there's the bus. And I think, oh, gee, the bus wasn't late.
Ah,
And now I start wishing for the good old days when the crazy girl from the strip club was chasing me down the street. I'd do anything to go back to those days at that point. So we're driving a little bit closer, and this has been one of the most uncomfortable 15 minutes of my entire life. And we get to the street where he's supposed to turn left, and it gets very, very quiet. And I say, "Okay, up here, here's my street. You're going to turn left here." And I figure, okay, if he turns left, then I work with him and everything's fine. If he goes straight ahead, then I'm looking at a shallow grave in the Angeles forest. And I'll be damned, he actually turned left. I mean, it's no surprise. I'm not a ghost sitting here telling you this story. He turned left. He dropped me off. And then I went inside the house, and the first thing I did was to get my razor. and shave all the hairs on the back of my neck that were standing straight up at that point. Because see, I'll take a monster, a zombie, a vampire any day. It's people that scare the hell out of me. And yes, I did work with this guy, and he was very, very nice. And we were very, very friendly after that. And I think beyond all the scary movies I've ever seen, I have never been so nervous as I was during those 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan Farron. Round of applause. Come on, that was good. Dan Farron, thank you. Thank you so much.
Don't talk to strangers, kids.
Don't talk to
That's
strangers. I think that what we have learned here is do not get in the car with strangers, even if they offer you candy. Please, that's always a weakness for me. Candy is the big one, but do not get in the car with strangers. Yeah. And I wanted it to be Dan, where all of a sudden the guy turned around.
Or Legos.
Oh, what?
Yeah.
Or Legos.
Or Legos. Thank you. Or Legos. I wanted the guy to, as he's driving, to turn around and say, "Sure, Dan, you know me. I'm Leatherface."
Yeah.
You know me?
Yeah. I'm sorry for the little disconnect during the story there, but I had Baxter sitting in my lap the whole time. And the minute I started to speak, he was like, "Oh, I hear this guy all the time." He got up and jumped off my lap, and as he walked away, he knocked my notes over. So that's just what cats do. They can't stand. They have to have chaos. They can't stand to leave well enough alone.
They have attention all the time. Thank you, Mr. Farron, very much.
You're welcome.
I'm going to bring up a delight, because another delight. Not only is it just Ellen, but Ellen has brought her family. So that's wonderful. She has her sister and she has her daughter here. The coolest thing in the world. I love Ellen. I've known her for the longest time, and she just continues to be lavishly talented. I love to see her grow. I love to see her tell stories. And before all of this ugliness went down, we were planning on doing a one-person show with Ellen, which is still going to happen. It is not off the books. There's still a way to do it virtually, and you will be there and you will go, "Damn, this woman, where's this woman's show? Where's this woman's Netflix thing?" You will say that about Ellen. She, again, just superb in every way. So please welcome Ellen, the day the earth stood still. Switkiss, welcome.
Thank you. Happy Halloween, everyone. So we're going back 40 years, 45 years. Can you hear me? Coming through. Okay. So Martha and I were college roommates. She made a vivid impression that first day in the dorms. While rolling a jumbo joint, she announced her intention to have sex with Mick Jagger. I was shocked. But you don't even know him. Martha was a daredevil. I was a chubby couch potato. She got us into trouble. I got us out. A year later, she was living in France for a semester abroad. During that time, she had become fluent in all things French. She knew the language and she knew the terrain. So when I joined her in Europe the following summer, she set the agenda. For the most part, it was a grueling trip. Neither one of us had much money, and like many young people, we knew nothing about traveling. We were two schnooks on the loose. But there was that one day when Martha hit it out of the park. We were hitchhiking through the French countryside and came to a beautiful area in the foothills of the Alps. The park featured a crystal blue lake cupped in a rock quarry. This park was packed with people, swimming and sunbathing. Au naturel, of course. Our plan was to camp outdoors by the lake. We met a group of students. They had a houseboat, which quickly became party headquarters. Wine and weed were plentiful. Everyone at this party was gabbing in French. Since my French was non-existent, and I have always found weed and wine poor substitutes for chocolate and pastries, I left this party by jumping overboard. I started swimming around the lake. The sun was shining, the water sparkled. Before long, I found myself alone in the middle of the lake. I had this jewel to myself. Suddenly, the sun disappeared behind a hill. It got cloudy. Then the thunder and lightning started. The wind kicked up and the rain came down, and with difficulty, I swam to the shore. I hoisted myself up on some rocks. I looked around for shelter. High up on the hill, there was a boulder jutting out. If I could just huddle under that boulder, I would be somewhat protected from the storm. But the rain made the ground slippery. The path was turning into mud. I tripped and fell into some bushes. Those bushes had thorns. They cut me. My hands were bleeding. Then I couldn't move my foot. I looked down. A man was hiding in the bushes. He was holding one ankle. He quickly grabbed my other ankle, and he began dragging me towards him. Poof! I'm back in the lake, treading water. I look at my hands. No scratches, no blood, no rain. The sky, the sun, it's still shining. At that moment, I realized it had all been a hallucination. I hadn't indulged in any wine or weed, but obviously my imagination was working overtime. And yet it all seemed so real. I was scared out of my mind. I swam back to the houseboat. I found Martha. She was flirting with some French guy. I'm hysterical. We gotta get out of here. Martha was not ready to leave the party. Relax, have some wine. I don't want any wine. Martha, we're in danger. Stop it. You're embarrassing me. You're so American. I must have been quite a sight. My voluptuous body stuffed into a skimpy bikini, waving my arms, screaming, I am not staying here tonight. I'm leaving. Are you coming with me? There was a lot of back and forth between us. Finally, she agreed to leave. We hitched into town, checked into a little pension, and once we were safely in our room, Martha turned to me and said, Go ahead. I'm listening. Explain yourself. I told her about the storm, the man, the crime that was unfolding before my eyes. I told her my hallucination was a warning. She disagreed. It's not a warning. It's an excuse. Ellen, you hate camping. You're the petty bourgeoisie. You just want to sleep in your comfy little bed. Well, here we are, trapped indoors. Are you happy now? Then a strange look came over her face. She remembered that on the houseboat, people were talking. They had told her that there had been a murder at the lake the week before. The body had been found, but the killer had not yet been captured. Maybe you had some kind of ESP thing going on. Martha, let me get this straight. You learned that a killer is out there, and yet you want to sleep in the woods? Are you nuts? Oh, don't be absurd. Absurd was one of Martha's favorite words. Nothing would have happened to us. We would have been surrounded by people. Then she got a sadistic gleam in her eye. Hey, maybe the killer was at the lake today, and maybe he spotted you, and maybe he was stalking you, and maybe you picked up on his vibe. She hummed the theme from the Twilight Zone. She laughed and then fell asleep. But I couldn't sleep. Something very strange had happened to me that day at the quarry. That vision was as vivid as any nightmare, and yet I was fully conscious, awake the whole time. A few years later, my sister and I, on a lark, spent the weekend at a presumably haunted hotel in Pennsylvania near the Amish country. It was an old wreck of a place, long dark hallways, creepy stairwells. This hotel was crawling with old ladies, desperate to connect with their deceased husbands. Those lonely widows consulted the hotel's staff of psychics, mostly men, and most of these men had an uncanny resemblance to Liberace. I went for a reading. My psychic was the lone woman on the staff. Dowdy and middle-aged, she looked like a bureaucrat with the school system. As soon as I walked in, she looked up at me, and then her gaze continued higher and higher until she was staring straight up at the ceiling. Extraordinary! It's just extraordinary! You have the tallest guardian angel I have ever seen. Fear nothing, for he will protect you. And I guess he did.
Oh my gosh, that's wonderful. Ellen Switkiss, everybody. You must give it up big time. Ellen Switkiss.
Thank you.
Oh
Happy
my
Halloween.
Happy Halloween. That was terrifying. I love that. And I think I speak for everyone here. I so dislike Martha. All right. I hope she never slept with Mick Jagger. I hope that she went to Mick Jagger naked and Jagger went, not so much. That is my fervent hope for Martha. I hope she got to sleep with David Crosby instead. That's what I hope. So there, Martha, email me if you want to. You're not nice. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, everybody, for being at this show. We're going to round it out with a man who, again, we never see enough. Ruben is resplendent in every way. We can't get enough of this man. He's like the best artisan ice cream anybody could hope to have. I, again, do not see him enough. I miss him terribly, but we get a chance to see him now. He is just damn good in every way. He is astonishingly wonderful. So please welcome Ruben, Devil Girl from Mars, Padilla.
Boo.
Ah!
Boo. Can you see me?
Ah!
I want you to get a good visual on this before I take it off. Here we go. It's just me, guys.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it wasn't real. But if you were suitably terrified, then you're going to be in the perfect mood for what I'm about to show you, because this is the scariest costume that I have ever found, and I've field tested it, and it works. This is an exorcist mask, and this is a full nightgown. I'm 6'4", and then this is some evil little baby I found in a Halloween shop, and I took the eyes out that glowed red, and it's much better with the black eyes. So I started this story about 6 years ago, and some of you heard the beginning of it, but you haven't heard the end of it. And because it's Halloween, I thought it would be a perfect way to celebrate the show. So get this in your mind, and then I'll put it away, and I'll tell you the story of this particular costume. Okay, it's off. You can uncover your eyes. It's me. All right. So about 6 years ago, my friend David, I knew him from high school, his wife Brenda, they have 2 kids, Joshua and Sarah. They had a Halloween carnival in Chula Vista, which is a suburb of San Diego, asked if I wanted to come along. I said, absolutely, I'm gonna bring the costume. I love scaring kids. Now, this is something that you could do maybe 6 years ago. And as time goes on, it's getting a little bit more difficult to do this sort of thing. So some of you are going to argue as to whether or not I should have done it in the first place, but it happened. So here it is. I went to the carnival. This is an elementary school. And immediately, the family, David and Brenda and Sarah and Joshua, took off. They had booths and they had jumper things and they had cakewalks. And I found a spot under a tree and I stood there. And I had the full regalia. Immediately, I was a huge hit. Kids would come around and they would look at me, and parents were very terrified, but I noticed a lot of moms like to get their picture taken with scary things. So I had mothers coming up all night asking for photos, kids who were too scared to have a photo, but they would not take their eyes off of me. I was, without a doubt, the hit of this particular carnival. And I thought it was fantastic. And at one point, the kids were looking at me, and one kid looked up at me. Now, when I do the mask, I'm in complete character. I don't speak. This is a big treat that I took it off and you see who I am. Normally, and I've done this at Story Salon, where I will stay the whole time in costume. And in fact, I was wearing it for an hour and 20 minutes. I shouldn't have done that. I got really hot and sweaty. My hair's a mess. But again, I'm in character. But I broke it to tell you this. I'm standing there, and one of the kids looks up at me and says, "Are you Mr. Rossi?" Now, I don't know who Mr. Rossi is, but apparently I was about the same height as somebody they know as Mr. Rossi. And this is the big mistake I made. I didn't want to say anything, so I just kind of nodded imperceptibly, and that was it. The kids started running off. "It's Mr. Rossi! It's Mr. Rossi! It's Mr. Rossi!" And the next thing I know, kids are coming up and hugging me, a running hug, and hugging me from everywhere. And it was at that point when one of the kids was hugging me, I thought, this could be a bad idea. Because I'm not Mr. Rossi, and I may have let them know that I am Mr. Rossi, and this could get, and I don't have a legal disclaimer like Ty had at the beginning of his story. Maybe I should. So the word spread, Mr. Rossi is here. And every kid, there must have been, oh God, a couple hundred kids were coming up and giving me high fives and hugging me. And I then realized maybe I shouldn't let the kids hug me. I'll keep it to high five. See, I was thinking, I was smart. And then I noticed a bunch of parents off to the side and a bunch of moms. And this particular group of moms, you've all seen them. Some of you might even be them. These are not your regular cool moms. These are what we say in Spanish, we call metiche moms, meaning these are the moms who put their nose in other people's business. And they were staring at me as a group, and they didn't have a good look on their face. And I saw one of them say to somebody else, and I couldn't hear them, but I read their lips. They said, "I don't think that's Mr. Rossi." And at that point, I knew this could be a sticky situation. Finally, a lady came over. She said, "Who are you?" And I stayed in character. I didn't say anything. She said, "I'm the principal, and I need to know who you are." And I said, "Okay, that makes sense." And I let her know without taking off the mask, "I'm here with Brenda and David and Joshua and Sarah. I have a legitimate connection, a reason for being here. The kids love it. Everything is fine." And she said, "Okay." And she walked away, but she wasn't very happy. Anyway, I was the hit. And I love to know what happened the next day when a million kids went up to the real Mr. Rossi and told him the story. So a year later, I decided, you know what, I'm going to go back. I was invited. The kids were there at the thing. I said, let's do it again. Let's see what happens. And I showed up in full regalia. And as I walked onto the playground, I could hear everywhere kids saying, "He's here, he's here, he's here." And word spread. But before I could get a firm place where I could start my greetings, the principal came over and she said, "You must leave." And I said, "What?" She said, "You must leave." And I said, "No, I'm here for a legitimate reason. I'm here with Brenda and David and Josh." She said, "No, you're scaring the kids." And I said, "They don't look scared. They're really happy. Everybody's excited to see me." She said, "You have to leave now." And I was so angry that I didn't leave, but I went off the school property, and then I stood in the public street so that whenever the kids would leave with their families in the car, they would see me as the headlights swept, making a turn out of the parking lot, and I'd be standing there waving, holding the baby, or pointing at them. And again, a legend was secured for the second year in a row. The third year, I said, should I do this again? I said, I think I will. I found out the principal was no longer there. I didn't have an arch enemy. So I went full regalia, happy to be there. And as soon as I got there, while the principal was not there, there was a squad of parents that apparently were keeping their eyes open for me. And they were staring at me and would not get me out of their sight, communicating with each other where I was on the school grounds. I understand. I know in today's world, there's some strange guy, but I had a legitimate connection. So as soon as I left, I could feel everybody silently, the parents at least, willing me, wishing me to leave. And yet the kids were ecstatic. And I love to hear, he's back, he's back, he's back. Year 4, night, my son is as tall as me. He's taller than me now. He said, Dad, I think I would like to do this. Could I wear the costume? And I thought, this is brilliant. This is a legal loophole. Nobody can get mad at me because it's not even me in the costume. It's somebody else. And you really can't get upset at a costume. It's Halloween for heaven's sake. So I put the costume on him. I stayed a few paces back and he walked onto the school and I got to see from a very different standpoint, everybody yelling, he's here, he's here, he's here. And my son was surrounded by people. And behind the kids were all the parents staring angrily, not wanting us to be there. And at one point I felt uncomfortable enough. I said, Knight, my son's name, Knight. I said, we should get out of here. I think we should leave. Let's go. And we walked back to the car. This was year 4. The next day, my friend David calls me and says, you're not going to believe this, but a woman that you met in the very first year, a friend of mine who's a neighbor, works as a 911 dispatcher. And last night, she was working in the 911 dispatch office when a call came in from worried parents saying, he's here, he's back, send the police, he's 6'4", wearing an exorcist mask, a full nightgown, and an evil baby. Hurry. Apparently, she heard this, knew this is my friend's friend, called him, and that's the only way that I know that there was an all-points bulletin for this guy, this crazy guy, who for years has been terrorizing this neighborhood. So you would think that would be the end of it. But then, the next year, I decided maybe I can do something. Maybe I can go. My plan was to get 3 masks, 3 nightgowns, 3 babies, let my son wear one, I'd wear the other, my friend would wear one, and we would make a 3-pronged attack on the school grounds from different entrance points. This would delight the children and completely freak out every parent. There's 3 of them, hurry. Now, unfortunately, with the pandemic, I haven't been able to do that. And now I'm relegated to my Inland Empire neighborhood, where I'm happy to say I've become kind of a legend. There are families that travel from miles around, so I'm told, in their cars to find me walking up and down the streets, terrorizing people. All of this has taught me, 1, I may not be the most responsible adult out there. 2, I know that the kids, who many of them are now in their teenage years, there is a large section of children who went to school in Chula Vista, California, who for the rest of their lives will never forget this evil entity. 3, Mr. Rossi, who I've never met and who's never met me, probably hates my guts. And the final thing is, in this horrible year with so many bad things happening, I can think of far worse things than an adult, a responsible adult, a parent who likes delighting kids with a truly creepy, scary mask that hopefully will give you some nightmares on this Halloween. And I know you're covering your eyes, but that's it. That's the end of the story. I don't know what I'm going to have planned for next year, but I promise it's going to be something. And if you ever hear of a 6'4" exorcist in a nightgown with an evil baby being shot to death by police, well, I may have deserved it. Happy Halloween, everybody.
Happy Halloween. Ruben Padilla. Oh my gosh. Ruben Padilla. How many people can vote for Ruben to be a fairy princess next year? Raise your hand. Oh, Ruben. Would you show up at my voting precinct wearing that outfit?
Absolutely.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. Thank you. And I think that we have now our next month theme. Ruben gave us that. This could be a bad idea. I think I think that is our theme for next month. Oh my God, this was. I got to tell you all, Halloween is one of my very favorite holidays, and I'm so sorry that we cannot celebrate it in the way that we have before. But this was a perfect night for it. So I just want to thank everybody. Thank you so much. Donna Allen Figueroa, Sophia Carillas, Julio Martinez, Ty Fance. Thank you, Dan Farron, Ellen Switkiss, and Ruben Padilla. Thank you all so much. Oh, this is so nourishing and wonderful. And a huge shout out to Amber Greenberg. Thank you, Amber. Without you, couldn't do none of this stuff. And be scared, do something wonderful and silly and scary for Halloween. And then please go vote, everybody. I know that most of us have already, but go and vote. And we will be doing this next month. Huge love to everybody. Shout out of love and blessings to everybody for this. Thank you so much. Thanks for being a part of the Story Salon. All right, good night, everybody.
Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Go and be
Halloween,
scared.
everyone. Love
Be
you.
scared, somebody. Thank
Love
you.
you guys.
Don't get in the car with strangers, please.
Love you all.
Bye.
Great to
Thank
see
you.
you. Good night, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
John.
everybody.
Bye, Ty. Bye, everybody.
Love and love, love and love. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Kate. Mwah, mwah, mwah,
Now
mwah.
you can talk.
Now to just write it?
No, you can talk.
Thank
Oh,
you.
I didn't know. I didn't want to
Hi,
talk. I
Lila.
wanted to write it.
To who?
Hi. I'm trying to figure out how to tell you it was a great evening, terrific stories. I don't call my son to help me.
You
I
just
don't
Turn
know
your
what.
video on.
We can hear you, Lila. Okay.